I'm Ramon, and this is Bold Like a Leopard. And the guy on the screen next to me is Dylan Ratigan from the TYT Network. And you know, unfortunately, there are a lot of things I want to talk about with the TYT Network that I probably couldn't get away with on YouTube, given today. And I also wanted to do some more investigating. But Dylan Ratigan actually put out a video today that I think was very helpful. I think I'm actually glad to see that he did put out a video that for once it shows a progressive giving the real skinny on what Obamacare means for progressives and indeed for all Americans. Because I'm not a progressive, I am a free market capitalist, conservative on a lot of other issues. I don't like to frame my politics with one camp, but I do believe in the free market. So that's the best definition I have. And Ratigan is a hardcore left-wing socialist, to my knowledge. I think he might even be a little further to the left than, what's his name, Bernie. But he goes and spills the beans on this charade that the Democratic Party is perpetrating on the progressive movement as far as Obamacare, because as I've been explaining for the past few months, you cannot pretend that Obamacare, a system which has left, according to I think TYT, 40 million people uninsured, is really universal health care or anything close to it. It's actually a concept that is such a distant departure from that I sometimes wonder how intelligent these progressives can claim to be when it's basically as if you sold people, skim milk and told them that it was oil or something. It's such a different system. But you'll listen to Ratigan go over it. It's not that long of a video. I don't know if I'm going to play the whole thing. But go ahead. I hope the echoing doesn't happen on like usual on these videos. I kind of adjusted the levels. But here goes.
The debacle that's American healthcare is obviously shameful, obviously tragic, obviously outrageous. But how do we get into this situation? You have to understand that the failure under Barack Obama to actually identify correctly the reason the American healthcare system is so dysfunctional and expensive is at the root of every piece of flawed legislation and every aspect of flawed debating that has occurred since. American healthcare was defined by Dwight Eisenhower in the 1950s as something that should be attached to jobs. You have a job, you get health insurance. It was a reasonable concept at the time, but ultimately completely out of touch with the entire Western world. Barack Obama, claiming to be a progressive, claiming to be a lot of things, rather than correctly identifying that the problem with American health care is that we have a private health insurance monopoly authorized by the government and the attachment of people's health care to their jobs at a time when mobility is at an all-time high. How many people can't leave their job right now because they're afraid they'll lose their health care? Think about the insanity of attaching your job to your health care. Just that. So Barack Obama, instead of detaching health care from jobs, instead of completely reforming the private health insurance business, if not eliminating it altogether, simply decided to mandate that everybody in the country has to buy health insurance from a government-ordained monopoly private health insurance industry. That was an outrageous piece of legislation. The big headline, oh, we're giving more people health care. Well, yeah, sure, you're giving more people health care while you fund the private health insurance monopoly and authorize that monopoly and leave health care attached to everybody's job. Fast forward to the current debate. We're not even talking about health care. This has nothing to do with health. This is all about money for health insurance companies and rich people. I don't know what's going to happen to this piece of legislation, but the entire American healthcare system is such an atrocity that whatever piece of legislation gets passed, I guarantee you, it will be short-lived because the American healthcare system is utterly unsustainable. Healthcare needs to be detached from jobs, and the private health insurance monopolies need to be left with.
So, obviously, he has a philosophical difference with me. You know, I mean, I'm not claiming to be debating him openly, but I'm just saying that there's a person, he comes from a progressive line. He's saying this is ridiculous. We're giving corporate welfare to insurance companies in order for them to provide health insurance that people are required to buy anyway. Why would you? That's a nice question, by the way, too. I think he was talking about it to some extent, but he didn't really hit it on the head. Why are we doing this law? Okay, why are we making a law where we're requiring every private citizen, regardless of their economic situation, to buy health insurance or get some sort of, or get onto a health insurance plan such as Medicaid or Medicare? Why are we making this requirement? And then, and among those things is to buy private health insurance. Okay, so you're requiring people to buy a private service or policy. And then not only are you doing that, but you're going to the health insurance companies and you're saying, yeah, we're going to subsidize these plans in order to fix the prices. So to some extent, I do agree with, even though my screen is going nuts to the left, I don't think you can see it, but I can. I do agree with Ratigan in the sense that the monopoly isn't necessarily the correct word, but a cartel would be. A fixed price market would be. You're really talking about a massive government intrusion on behalf of corporations, which both socialists, or I guess more purist socialists, are against, as well as libertarians, as well as people that are against the big government. So we have a wide gulf philosophically as to why we're opposing it. What is important, though, is that we don't continue to deceive people about what the nature of Obamacare is. It is, in the eyes of many of us, in our camp, okay? Just to be clear, in our eyes, it is a step towards an eventual takeover of the healthcare industry by the government, because as Ratigan kind of hinted, it's an unsustainable model, what Obamacare is. And to be honest with you, I think the Ryan Care model would have been along the same lines. It would have been generally a different type of subsidy. There would have been the individual mandate was not required. So I don't know if it would have been more sustainable, but I can sure as hell tell you that the differences between the Ryan Care and McConnell Care bills those differences were not philosophically much different from Obamacare. Yeah, there was the defunding Planned Parenthood. That has nothing to do with it. Yeah, there was this idea that they repealed the individual mandate, but they also put in all sorts of other clauses that kind of boxed people in so that they would end up having to buy health insurance, just the coercion wasn't as overt. Okay, I just took a little opportunity to fix my screen too. I'm going to bring up another piece of news on this episode. ACA Today, and keep reporting on this until, and after whatever legislation gets passed, if it does get passed, I'm not going to go away, because everybody else talks about fucking bullshit. Talk about O'Keefe and CNN and Sargon and Anita Sarkeesian and whatever, which is fine. I love those videos. I'm fine with it. A lot of these, you know what a lot of people aren't talking about? They're not talking about what these healthcare issues are. In fact, maybe I will add this at the end. Pretty important piece of legislation passed the House today regarding medical malpractice. But those aren't sexy topics. There's no sexy topic medical malpractice. You know, I'm gonna, you know, I almost went there, but there's nothing like seductive about, you know, reducing premiums or deductibles or offering low cost. There's nothing alluring about those. And as hard as I can try to do it, I'm not going to put you through trying to make that, you know, a sexy topic. But it affects literally every consumer in America, every citizen in America, probably non-citizens too, because there's a lot of people living here temporarily that they have health insurance. You know, I'm not just saying illegal immigrants if you want to paint them all with there's people who live here legitimately who are from overseas that they have health insurance here. It's an important issue here. So this is from the Boston Business Journal, and it says why Minuteman Health is starting over as a for-profit, and this was yesterday. Okay, Minuteman Health was a co-op in Massachusetts for Obamacare. It says Minuteman Health won't only forego federal rules when it becomes a new insurer, it will also become a for-profit. The change, excuse me, is still pending approval from insurance regulators in both Massachusetts and New Hampshire, but would make Minuteman one of the few for-profit health insurers to operate in Massachusetts. Minuteman CEO Tom Policelli said the insurer is becoming a new entity in 2018 to enter markets that aren't subject to Obamacare rules, which currently force Minuteman to share revenue with competitors. Okay? So that's actually something I never really knew was part of the regulation, that there's actual revenue sharing. This is why, what you want to know why revenue sharing is dog shit? Because that's why the NFL is fucking bullshit. Because you have teams that suck ass, like the Bengals, that will automatically get revenue sharing from better teams like the Patriots. Okay, that it's an easy concept to understand. Why try harder when parts of your revenue, you know, part of what you're making of your own hard-earned profits, if you're an independent entity, goes to some asshole who's on the other side, who's competing against you. So it's not a real competition, you socialist fucktards. This is price fixing and cartel economics. It is absolutely condemned by most liberal economists worldwide. Liberal meaning the economic liberal, not social liberal. Okay, and geez. For those of you that don't know, and you've lived here in the United States forever, liberalism in the economic sense is actually pro-business. So this is just a matter of language, guys. I know some of you are kind of probably going to say, fuck you, Ramon, what do you think, we're retarded? Well, look at the people that are, I mean, if your roommate's home, then that remark was for him, okay? Or her. Your dumbass roommate who doesn't know the difference between economic liberalism and social liberalism or modern democratic liberalism in America, that's the difference. That economic liberalism, I kind of fucked up here because I've gone into the weeds on this. Economic liberalism, as explained by people like Milton Friedman, and you know, Adam Smith, is the opposite of the liberalism that you're thinking of, the liberalism of the Democratic Party, because it says the more you facilitate for people the opportunity to conduct business in the way that they desire, the better the system will behave. The more opportunities people will have, and the better growth patterns you're going to get. While that was the impetus for changing to a new insurer, the decision to become a for-profit was so the new insurer could raise capital from investors. Okay, so this is implying that would be easier for people to invest. Now that might not be, I mean, it kind of is and is not Obamacare's fault. You need to have a capital base. You need to pull that from somewhere, Policelli said. That's what we are doing. You can't raise capital in a nonprofit plan. So basically what he's saying is that under the current model where you have this shared revenue and all that other bullshit where you're offering stuff on the Obamacare exchange, you would basically, you can't raise capital because of nonprofit organization tax rules and financial regulations. So therefore, if you're not breaking even and your costs are, not breaking even for your roommate there, is when you have higher costs than you have revenues. And that's happened with a number of Obamacare insurers. I'm not going to say the huge ones, but the ones that are the struggling smaller ones, and the large ones for their plans, they're not breaking even. So they may be overall making record profits, just like Dylan Ratigan correctly said, but on the plans themselves, they're not making profits. In fact, in order to even get close to it, they had to, this is the answer to his question, or the question that I kind of drew out of there. The answer is that in order to keep these companies on the exchanges, Obama and his administration were bribing them with corporate welfare, with these risk corridors, as they called them, just to get it close to breaking even. And that didn't even work. Policelli declined to detail how much the new nonprofit was seeking to raise, but that said it would be enough capital to meet regulatory requirements. In its first iteration, Minuteman received a $25 million startup loan when it launched in 2014, and in the 3 years since has received another $129 million in surplus notes. Investors have already shown interest in the business plan, Policelli said, in which Minuteman will shift its focus away from membership comprising individuals and small businesses on public health exchanges, and will look to grow membership by selling insurance to large employers and self-insured companies that need administrative insurance work. We're a value play in a market, not differentiated. Well, this is okay. So, let's skip to here. Minuteman currently has $112 million in cash. Policelli said that money at the existing insurer would be used to pay runout claims for this final year. So remember, this is not money that they're, they can just sit on and divvy up to each other. They have to pay claims to the people that are on these Obamacare exchanges. So, they don't have what to work with, as well as any future Obamacare payments, which won't be finalized until 2019. But the new insurer won't take any of the old insurer's capital. Whatever is left over, it would go back to CMS, Policelli said. So I think I'm going to talk about the malpractice bill at a different time. I'm going to sum this up. We have a real problem here where people are just not understanding that the private health insurance market, if you want it to be private, has to allow the insurers to behave as businesses, okay? Now, for socialists, that's never going to be acceptable. I think we're all clear on that. However, those that think that private health insurance is not the answer and that you must have government takeover of health insurance should know that in a lot of these foreign countries, due to all of the stuff that you call scaremongering, which is long queues and problems with infrastructure. You can't, if the entire healthcare system was nationalized, who would initiate the building of new hospitals and funding of new research? Would it be the government? They're already going to be committed to funding the healthcare, which would be astronomically large. Also, you're not factoring in whether or not we're going to reform malpractice law, which, that's a different topic that I said would be for a different day. But that's one of the reasons that healthcare costs are going up. We're still not talking about, by the way, pharmaceutical industry effects. The pharmaceutical industry and other medical device industries, their markups for whatever devices they're sending, or whether it's devices or equipment, even Q-tips or whatever markups are garnered due to the way that insurance is structured, You don't know how that's going to be affected. We don't know. First, these socialists, they don't know. They don't have any plan as far as dealing with the pharmaceutical industry. They don't. It's a fact. What they would end up doing, which I know because I've seen it in other systems worldwide, and I think they would agree with me. I'm not mischaracterizing them. Is they would start price fixing the pharmaceuticals, and then you would have the same. Well, some of the same issues with the pharmaceuticals as you now have with the health insurance. And you already have some of those because of Medicaid and Medicare. Those are programs that have no cap. And what happens is that, basically those pharmaceutical products are heavily subsidized, or, there are arrangements made between the federal insurers, those Medicare and Medicaid and whatever companies are in partnership with them. They're already being subsidized. So you have issues like the EpiPen, where due to massive government regulation, there's only one corporation that's authorized to produce the EpiPen, which is for treating allergic emergencies. That's why the price of the EpiPen exploded last year. So we're talking about just aggravating a different problem, the pharmaceutical problem, and in order to compensate for that, yes, we could fix the prices, yeah, sure, but you would have a gigantic tax burden that would be needed in order to do that. Now, are we not learning from the examples in Greece? The examples in, throughout Europe, Puerto Rico, Illinois, California, Connecticut. These massive tax regimens are fruitless. The businesses will just run away, or they'll close up. They'll run to other states. In the case of the USA, they will run to another country, to Mexico. They could run to, or they could do, pursue other methods of capital flight. Sequester their, just dig the money. I am tackling these issues up front. These are not things that I'm making up. I can see that the screen has frozen a lot, but I think I'm still there, and I see the clock still ticking. But I am going to wrap it up. Thanks to Dylan Ratigan, who is not going to watch this video, but finally there's a little clarity on the progressive side as far as Obamacare. But we're going to have to talk about what goes beyond Obamacare if and when it is gone, because it will be gone. It is that you can see from examples like I brought today that companies are not going to want to participate in it, and even people on the left are agreeing that it's not a sustainable model. It just isn't, and they're going to try to use it as a stepping stone to progressive universal health care. And we are going to try to pull it in the opposite direction. So the tug of war is going to start at some time or another. We'll talk about that later. I'm going to upload this. I'm going to try to plug it on ABL Live, which you can watch the channel of Anthony Brian Logan if you want. Good host. Love his channel. So I'll see you there. And until next time, stay bold.